Sometimes in life, you have to follow your dreams. Sometimes in life, you have to follow your passions. Brit and I have lived in this house for 5 weeks so far. However, now that we've had a little bit of a taste of home ownership, I think what we're going to decide to do instead is sell the house, sell all of our belongings, and finance a $250,000 2020 Lamborghini Huracan. What's up, guys? I'm Mike.
And I'm Brit.
And as the title says, we're going to be talking about money mistakes that Brit and I made in our late teens, 20s that had a lasting impact on our lives up until our 30s. Well, 30s in my case, probably late 20s in Brittany's case. Our intention in making this video is not to make like another typical money mistakes video. We hope to make this a lot more relatable to you guys because we're not going to be talking about like the typical things we wish we had invested earlier, although we do wish we had done that, or we put too much money on a credit card, or things like that. We're going to be talking about things that are not necessarily popular to talk about, but things that everyone goes through. The very first money mistake that I personally made was going to college. Now, why do I say that? I want to get this out of the way. The very first thing, I'm a big proponent of education and learning. I work with high schoolers in the areas of mathematics and science as one of my main jobs. So why do I mention going to college being the first money mistake that I made? College is absolutely the right path for some people to take, and it's absolutely the wrong path for other people to take. Unfortunately, we live in a society that pushes a college degree on pretty much everyone in your average high school. In my case, when I graduated high school, I had very little idea of what I wanted to do. I thought I wanted to be an astronaut in the sense that any typical 17-year-old thinks they know what they want to do. Like, I thought I wanted to be an astronaut, but here's what happened. After the first couple of aerospace engineering classes I took in college, I quickly found out that being an astronaut is not for me at all, not for me. So I was young and impressionable, and the only message I heard from my teachers, my guidance counselors, a lot of my peers was that you have to go to college to be successful, and so that you don't work at McDonald's for the rest of your life. Well, that may have been true like in the 1950s, 60s, 70s, maybe even the 80s. It's not the reality that kids right now are growing up. It's not the reality that I was in that I was transitioning from high school to college in. The internet changed everything, and it made 99% of the information you learn in college freely accessible for anybody with a cell phone. People are paying $40,000, $50,000, $60,000, sometimes even over $100,000 to learn things that you can learn in 5 minutes on your phone. Now, I was fortunate enough to get scholarships and grants for the majority of my time in college, but for the time I spent out of state, my parents took out student loans on my behalf and paid tuition for me. And I'm super appreciative of that, but I wish I had had more confidence in myself because even though I was pretty much a straight A student in high school, deep down inside I was very nervous about going to college and didn't necessarily think it was the right track for me. Unfortunately, however, I didn't tell anybody that, and I feel like if I had, I could have saved my parents about $7,500. I don't really regret my first 2 years in college. However, looking back, what I wish I had done instead of going for a typical 4 years bachelor's degree program in an out-of-state school that I would just end up transferring back in-state from anyway, was just going for an associate's degree instead in a small local community college and then getting straight out into the workforce for a real-world experience. This would have saved me a lot of years of my life and a lot of opportunity costs in terms of the money that I could have been making if I had just gotten an associate's degree and then started working full-time instead of being in school.
And one of my biggest money mistakes does have to go with college as well. It was more so spending way too much on my education for a degree in a specialized field where basically a certificate's all that's needed. So I could have gone to a public college instead of a private college and spent a lot less for the same certificate. And my employer that I first started working with paid me the same rate for going to that private school that said, oh, you'll have that nice name on that certificate and you'll get paid more. I was being paid the same as someone who had an associate's degree. So I didn't need to pay that extra money to get it. Long story short, I really wish I had done that differently.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like, unless you want to work for some prestigious law school that actually like cares about where you went to college, most employers don't care. They don't care at all. Like,
you'll be paid the same rate as someone who went to a public school versus a private school.
Yeah.
Starting out, everybody's on the same pay.
Yeah.
I learned that the hard way.
Yeah. Now, Brittany did, like, in Brittany's defense, she got an awesome education.
I did. It was very good.
Yeah, but I think that had a lot more to do with your particular field of study than the school that you went to. All right, money mistake number 2, and that was canceling my credit card. So in my case, my mom got me a credit card when I was like 16 years old to start building up my credit. I used it for very, very small things like gasoline, minor things here and there for years. Paid it off every month just to start building my credit up. About 8 years ago, Bernie and I went through Dave Ramsey's Financial Peace program, which I would highly recommend. It kind of put us on a different path that we were on financially, thankfully. However, part of that was, we decided to cut up and cancel all the credit card accounts that we had. So that credit card that I had had since 16 years old, I cut up, canceled the account, and my credit score slowly declined until it just kind of went away.
Yeah, I think it took about 4 or 5 years before it just completely went away.
For the longest time, it didn't really bother us until we wanted to get a house. We made a dedicated video to credit cards. I'll link it up here if you guys are interested in watching it. But buying a house without a credit score can be done. It's just a lot more difficult. It can be done. Lenders can do it. It just takes a lot more time and information, and you have to have a lot more cash available. So I wish I had kept this credit card around, even if I just kind of put it to the side and didn't put anything on it, because that would have made the home buying process a lot easier initially, and I feel like we could have gotten a better deal on something if we had had a credit score at first. All right, money mistake number 3 for me was buying a brand new Toyota Prius for $30,000 and financing 99% of it. It's a bad idea to buy a new car unless you have a lot of cash, and unless you have a high net worth. It's generally a bad idea to buy a brand new car because almost anything with an engine is a depreciating asset, meaning the value of that asset will go down over time, unless you're talking about like some very, very high-end 1 out of 100 like luxury car that's like $500,000, something like that. Those can sometimes go up, but if you're not talking about those, which is the vast majority of people who buy a car, vehicles are just depreciating assets. And for brand new cars, the statistic is, over the first 4 or 5 years, they lose over half of their value for a lot of them. So unless we're talking about a high net worth individual, like a millionaire or something like that, generally it's a very bad idea to buy a brand new car because you're just losing money. So in my case, that was the number one reason it wasn't a good idea to buy a brand new car. I was still in college. I was earning like $1,000 a month. Zero net worth, basically. The other reason was that the monthly payment was almost half of my income every month. So I had this part-time job while I was in college. I buy this brand new Toyota Prius, financed the vast majority of it, and I'm now throwing half of my income out the window to the bank every month to own this car. And I justified the Prius because it got like twice as better gas mileage as my previous car, which is a Honda Civic. And here's another thing, the Honda Civic I owned before this was almost paid off. And if I had just waited a couple months, paid off the Honda Civic, I could have been saving that $250 car payment and or investing it into my future. And just doing some quick calculations on my phone here, $250 a month invested at 10% over the course of 5 years yields about $20,000 afterwards, which would have been a huge chunk of change to put toward all of Brittany's and my debt when we first got married. But instead, I chose to give that money to the bank by financing a brand new car. Lesson learned.
And it was a big mistake for me as well. I did the same thing. So the first car I got was used. I actually paid off about 80 or 90% of the car, and the rest of it that was financed, I only had maybe a year worth of financing on it for very little payments. And after paying that off, I got into a car accident. Then I was gonna buy a used car again and do the same thing, but was talked into buying a new car. And when I saw that the payments were not gonna be that much more than the used cars I was looking at, but I ended up spending double the cost and a lot longer in debt. And it took up the majority of my income when I was working part-time during college. So it was not a good idea. Okay, so the TLDR about buying a new car, I wouldn't do it unless I had the net worth to support it. And in Brittany's on my case, probably a net worth of $1 million or more to buy a brand new car ever again. And even then, I feel like once we have a net worth of $1 million, we're really gonna understand the value of money even more, and we probably wouldn't want to buy a brand new car because we would understand how much money we're just going to lose. All right, money mistake number 4, at least in my case, staying in college for too long. So here's another money mistake that has to do with college. So the first one was going to college. The second one was not dropping out soon enough. So here's the deal. I don't know what it was with me. I thought I wanted to be an astronaut, as I mentioned earlier in the video. I quickly found out that I didn't want to do that. And then after that, it was like, well, gosh, I don't know what I want to do. I think I took 1 semester off to try and figure it out.
I didn't figure it out. My parents were on my case about getting back in school. So I went back in school, but then I didn't really have a plan, and I still didn't know what I wanted to do. You guys, I'm not even joking about this. For the next 8 years of my life, I was just going in circles in college. One degree program to another. Environmental science, and then mathematics, and then biology, and then biochemistry. All this was after aerospace engineering. I would research a subject. I was like, yeah, this kind of seems interesting. I'd, go for it. Quickly find out again, this is a lot less exciting than I thought it was going to be. Start researching something else. I was like, all right, yeah, this looks cool. Let's do this. Nope. The idea I had in my head was that a college degree was a necessity to become successful in life. And I didn't want to let my parents down. I didn't want to let my teachers down. I didn't want to be looked on by society as some sort of like second-class failure for not having a degree. Even though most of the time I was in college, especially the later years, I knew it was not working. It was just 100% not working at all for me. Like, it was not the environment that I learned the best in. It was boring. Like, my grades were declining, not because I was unintelligent. It was just, I didn't care. I didn't study. Time is a lot more precious than money is. Like, you can always get money back. You can never get time back. And I spent almost a decade of my life going in circles in college because I believed I needed a degree to become successful. And I didn't. So I was fortunate enough to have grants and scholarships the majority of the time I was in college. The very first semester I had to take out a student loan was the semester I had dropped out. One day I got a letter in the mail saying that these grants that had been paying for my, schooling for so long were not going to be paying for my schooling any longer because, it's been so long. I should have a degree by now. I don't have a degree. So that ran out and I had to take out a student loan. And it was at that point I was like, I still have no idea what I want to do. I hate being in college. I spent too long in college, and so I dropped out. And I've been told by many people I'm the most well-educated college dropout that they know. But yeah, I could have saved myself $5,500 if I had just believed in myself and was courageous enough to face reality and get out sooner. I also could have looked for different employment while I was in college, but again, like this mindset that had been impressed on me from teachers, guidance counselors, parents, said that I had to have a college degree to have a successful career, and because of that, I didn't look for like good jobs that I could have gotten. I looked for these part-time minimum wage jobs that is just easy for anyone to get because that's what I believed I was only worth without a college degree. Which leads me into the fifth and final money mistake, and that was not believing in myself. Now, on the surface, not believing in yourself sounds more like a personal problem than a financial problem, and it kind of is, but it could lead to a lot of financial issues and a lot of missed opportunities financially, and that's the case with me. My entire college career was built on not believing in myself. I didn't believe in myself. I didn't have a lot of self-confidence. I looked to others too much to make decisions for me, and that led to, I guess, a psyche going into college of not being able to think for myself. And because of that, I went in circles. And I'm not trying to put this on other people. Like, at the end of the day, it's my fault. And it's especially my fault for letting that toxic cycle continue while I was in college. This led to a lot of missed opportunities, a lot of sacrifices that I wouldn't necessarily have to make, and a lot of internal struggle and just nasty things going on inside of me that happened for way too long that I could have just avoided if I had had the courage to speak up and just face reality. So those are Brittany's and my 5 money mistakes that we made late teens, early 20s that cost us financially over the next probably decade of our lives. The message we want you to get out of this video is believe in yourself. Please believe in yourself. Don't pay for something unless you have the money in cash to pay for it. Especially college. And don't be afraid to fail. I know a lot of us grow up in a school system that teaches us not to fail. Failure, although painful, is one of the best teachers of life. I can say, at least for me, in my experience, I have learned a lot more from failing than I have from succeeding. So with that being said, you guys, I hope this was enjoyable. I hope it wasn't too negative. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a huge thumbs up. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
There are a lot of middle school. Okay.